Good evening. I will now call to order the Chesterfield Township Planning Commission meeting on November 9th, 2024. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call. I will call the roll. Mr. Miller is here. Mr. LaBelle?
Here.
Mr. Demink?
Here.
Mr. Leonard?
Here.
Mr. Renault?
Here.
Mr. Jaworski?
Here.
Mr. Klinowski?
Here.
Mr. Brokart?
Here.
And Mr. Carr is excused. Approval of the minutes of prior meeting. I will make a motion to approve the minutes of September 17th, 2024. We have a motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Demink. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the agenda. I will make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Renault. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Public comments, there's a 3-minute time limit if you'd like to speak on anything on the agenda.
James Locke, Chesterfield. Item E on the agenda, new service station down there, or gas station. It appears by the map that they're going to be having part of their parking lot and parking spaces over our 21-mile road interceptor, over the township's easement there. I know we have a problem with 21-mile interceptor being worked on. And is that going to interfere with it or what? I mean, that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
There's a gentleman over here. Did you want to speak now, sir?
Yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Over here, up to the.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
There's a middle button, sir. Right in the middle, it turns red. There you go.
Okay, I'm sorry. My name is Mike Seema. I'm from West Bloomfield, and I have a client on Gratiot, Boshemi's store. They're interested to put a gas station, to add a gas station to their location. I would like to hear from the board if they're allowed or not.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the gentleman was asking about the possibility of putting a gas station in Chesterfield Township. And I recommended that he get a hold of Jonathan Palin in planning and start there. And then the process will continue on. This probably isn't the best place to discuss what your plans are in the future unless you're on our agenda.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Hello, Janice Young. I don't have much to say. I just noticed item 9A, there's the proposal to change our zoning language. I'm just going to really ask this board again to please really think about our zoning ordinance the way it stands and to not make any changes if it isn't in the best interest of the township. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, number 7 is public hearings. We have none. Number 8 is a regular agenda. Mr. LaBelle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item A is sign review J24-2224. It's at the Walmart store at 45400 Marketplace Boulevard. They're requesting a variance for an additional sign on the front of the Walmart store depicting for the package pickup. We have a gentleman here from Walmart or from the sign company. If you'd like to give us a quick presentation as to why we should give you a variance this evening. Thank you.
I'm Greg Keys with PB2 Architecture and Engineering, representing Walmart in this. My understanding is there was an expansion to the store done, I think just last year, for the pickup. So you order it online, you go there and you pick it up. It's actually on the side, set back from the front there. The store management has said that they're having customers that are having trouble to recognize where that new area is for them to go versus before, I believe it was in the front parking of the store. So the request is to add another sign on that expansion that's on the right side that says pickup, so help direct folks to where they need to be able to park to go pick up their orders.
Yeah, I have a few. Greg, I didn't catch your last name.
Keys,
Can I call you Greg?
K-E-Y-E-S.
Okay, thank you. So, you noted that the previous sign, it's an existing sign, correct?
Correct. There is an existing pickup sign that's actually
Right.
on the front elevation currently,
Right.
yes.
Is confusing to your customers and they're having a difficult time locating the correct area. I'm assuming pickups are picking up. You're doing a lot more of that. Is that an accurate
Yes,
statement?
yes.
So maybe 2-3 years ago, it wasn't very popular, but now it's gaining popularity?
Basically, COVID put it into high drive.
Okay, makes sense. Do you have any data that suggests everyone's confused or people
I
can't
do
find
not
it?
have any like traffic counts or anything of that sort. This has just come from the store, local store management that I guess that they have had customers that have had trouble trying to find where they're supposed to park. That is what I've got. It, like I said, don't have traffic counts or anything of where they're saying what they're, or any of that kind of stuff.
My thought is simply this. Maybe a new sign isn't the answer. Maybe the customers are confused because it's something new. The first time I pick something up, I look around for it. Then the second time, I kind of know where it is. And by the third time, I know where it is. I don't even need a sign. So my question is, are you sure a bigger sign will solve the problem?
Since that expansion was over a year ago, I think the idea of it being new, it's not quite so new. I think it's an issue where the folks just don't know where to go, and they're wanting this sign, because it would be a lighted sign, that's what we're proposing, that's gonna be there, that they would be able to see that on that back side of that and say, oh, this is where we're supposed to go.
Okay, so you want a total of 73.2 square feet for pickup, because you're at 32 now. You want to add another 40. Do you think that's going to solve the problem?
We believe that will help direct customers to know where it's supposed to be, because the current one, the front pickup on there, it has an arrow pointing, but apparently that's not been enough for the folks to know to go back on that side, and so they'll be able to see that back there.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I had the same question, so we're all good.
Thank you. Mr. Jaworski?
I thought the same thing as well. I just thought maybe there could be temporary signs that might do just that, direct people to the right spot and, you know, without having to go with the permanent sign.
Thank you. Mr. Klinowski?
Yeah, I have no problems with it. It probably will help their situation there.
Mr. Leonard?
Yeah, I don't have a big problem with it, whether it's needed or not for everybody or just a few. The building, the facade of the building is so large, there's not that many signs anyways. I think it'll be noticed, but not gonna get lost in a bunch of other signage, so I don't really have a problem with it either.
Thank you. Mr. LaBelle?
So the actual pickup area, where you get your groceries, or you get whatever, is it on the side of the building, or is it on the front of the building?
It's actually on the side of the building, so
Well, I
there's
can
the
see where the
grocery side.
confusion would
and
be
it's
then. If you're
back
standing,
there.
if you're out front, how would you know where to go if it's on the side of the building?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have no questions. If that, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the sign review J24-2224, the variance for an additional sign on at the Walmart site. The reasoning for my recommendation is based upon the property being in a PUD, which they have different sign requirements than just other areas, as well as the size, as Mr. Leonard said, the size of the building, the length of the building. It is, the front of the store is not overcrowded with signage. Therefore, I make a recommendation for approval.
Support. We have a motion by Mr. LaBelle, supported by Mr. Leonard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Brokart voted no.
Item B is Ultimate Framing Company LLC Site Plan 2023-15. The applicant has asked us to pull his request, and therefore will be no action by this board. So I'm asking we're just gonna not going to do anything with this from this point forward. Item C is Verus Development Group Site Plan 2024-13. This is a special land use, C3, 1.513 acres, north side of 23 Mile, east of Sherborne Drive. Parcel ID is 15-09-14-400-046. The address is 34875 23 Mile Road. The public hearing was closed and postponed, making a decision back on 9/17/24. The applicant has since revised his drawings, and Ms. Osborne, you want to continue on, please?
Great, thank you. So Commissioners, tonight in your packets, you have a review letter from us. The review letter is dated September 11th, and I'll note that the plans that we reviewed for that letter are from August. The applicant has since updated plans. The new plans are dated November 4th. So I'll walk through the review letter, but I'll note changes that they have made that I was able to confirm before this meeting. So as noted, the applicant's proposing a coffee shop with a drive-through, and that's a special land use in this C3 General Commercial Zoning District. The Planning Commission is tasked with reviewing these plans and deciding as to whether the site meets all zoning ordinance standards and their intent as applicable. And the applicant has provided a narrative explaining how the project complies with the standards for special land use. So the Planning Commission should review that narrative and must find that all of these standards have been met to grant the special land use approval. On the bottom of page 2, we really get into the meat of the review. The district standards are listed here. This proposal meets all of the district standards, dimensional standards for the district. At the top of page 3, we move into the use standards for fast food restaurants, which this would fall under. It's compliant, the proposal is compliant with all of these standards with the exception of 2 items that the Planning Commission might want to discuss further. One is whether or not the plans have adequate ingress and egress to handle the traffic that's anticipated. The site plan does propose 1 ingress lane and 2 egress lanes from 23 Mile Road, and the interior maneuvering lane is a 2-way drive aisle that's 24 feet wide. Additionally, another item for fast food restaurants is that devices for electronically amplified voices or music shall be directed or muffled to prevent any such noises from being audible at any lot line. The site is right in between 2 residential lots, and so the applicant has noted that they've provided a sound study and that they've done their best to mitigate any noise, but that's something that you may wish to discuss with them further. Moving on to the bottom of page 3, move into site standards. The building surface materials that are being proposed are brick, veneer, some EIFS, and the Nichaha wood planks. The building frontages in commercial or office zoning districts are supposed to be a minimum of 90% brick or similarly decorative and durable material. The applicants provided calculations showing the south elevation facing 23 Mile Road is 47.5% brick. And if you don't include the glass, that goes up to 63.8% brick. So the Planning Commission may wish to discuss with the applicant whether or not the materials that they're proposing meet the intent of this standard. In terms of pedestrian circulation and sidewalks, the applicant's proposing a 5-foot concrete sidewalk, and that connects with an 8-foot wide concrete sidewalk along 23 Mile Road, and some crosswalks and connectivity within the site for pedestrians. The site does require screening, so major screenings required for the north end of the lot and the west lot lines. To meet this requirement, the applicants propose adding in a 150-foot green belt and stormwater catch basin to the north, and then a 6-foot wide green belt with 12 screening trees on the west. I'll note that the trees that are being proposed are all deciduous, and that the screening on the west side that's proposed does not meet the screening requirements outlined in the ordinance, which would require a 6-foot high decorative masonry screen wall and a 10-foot landscaped green belt. So the applicant has indicated that they will seek a variance for this standard, and that is to be determined still. The tree preservation requirements are met for this site, as well as all the landscaping requirements for parking frontage, and then also maintaining the clear vision triangle. At the bottom of page 4, we get into lighting. There are some changes to the site plan here that I'd like to just bring to your attention. So they did provide a photometric plan. The lighting fixtures have been updated so that the mounting height is 18 feet tall, not the 20 that was originally on the plans. The lighting maximum at the property line is 0.3-foot candles on the east and west lot lines, which exceeds the maximum of a 1/4-foot candle when it abuts residential properties. However, the average lighting intensity for the parcel is compliant at 0.93-foot candles. In terms of vehicle parking, stacking, and loading, the site requires 38 spaces. The applicant's proposing 31 spaces and will land bank 7 of the spaces. This was an update to the plans where the land banked area previously had some trees located there. Those were moved to show that the area is reserved for parking, and the trees are still provided. Part of the land banking requirements includes the applicants to submit substantial evidence that the parking needs are less than what is required by the zoning ordinance. So the Planning Commission should determine if what's been submitted is sufficient to allow land banking. The parking spaces that are proposed meet all the dimensional requirements along with the vehicular ingress and egress lanes. The applicant has proposed to have several bollards on site, some of them for signage for ADA parking and some located in the trash receptacle. The bollards meet the height requirements, and one update to the bollards is that they will not be painted but will have ribbed sleeves to color them. Fencing is also proposed. They are proposing a 3.5-foot tall decorative powder coated fence at the south end of the site for outdoor seating, and those are permitted. They have also met the requirements for bicycle parking. 2 bicycle parking spaces are required, and they've provided a rack that has space for 2 bikes on the east side of the building near the sidewalk connecting the site to 23 Mile Road. They did update the connecting sidewalk to be the required 6 feet wide, and the bicycle facilities to be the required 3 feet high. Down towards the bottom of page 5, we get into loading and unloading areas. The applicant did update this and is proposing a 20 by 40-foot loading area on the west side of the site. Drive-through is proposed for this site. They've provided 14 spaces as required for coffee shop drive-throughs, and adjusted the menu board so that they have the correct number of stacking spaces before the menu board. The applicant or the Planning Commission may wish to discuss other concerns with stacking with the applicant as needed. Again, as mentioned, there's a requirement for a landscaping setback near the drive-through lanes, just west of those as a buffer area. They've provided a 6-foot landscape setback, which is a little short of the 10 feet that's required, and the screening wall. And again, the applicant is seeking a variance for those items. The trash receptacle is located at the north center part of the property, north of the building. It's proposed to have double gates with black vinyl PVC coating. The enclosure walls are 6 feet tall and compose a split face black 8-inch CMU, which would require, or which is different than the building materials for the actual building, and those should match. 5 bollards are located within the enclosure, and those meet the requirements of the ordinance. I think that's it. If there's any questions, please let me know.
Yeah. Is the applicant here and want to come up and speak?
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Joe Paluzzi, and I'm with Veris Development Group, the developer for the proposed Starbucks at the reference location. As you are aware, we appeared before you in September and had many things to discuss at that time. And over the course of the last approximately 60 days, we obviously have revised the plans, as Ms. Osborne has very eloquently gone through. So a big portion of what I was going to go through this evening, I don't think I need to, because I think, like I said, it was very eloquently presented to you. One of the major concerns from your commission was traffic concerns and stacking concerns and queuing on the site. So we were asked at that time to commission a traffic study to be performed for this site, which we have completed, and it should be part of your packets. With me this evening, I have Ms. Julie Kroll from Fleece and Vanderbrink, who performed that study. So she is here to answer any questions in regard to it and concerns that you may have. In addition, I have Reed Cooksey and Tim Ponton from Stonefield Engineering. They're our civil design firm who have prepared the plans before you this evening as well. So between myself, the civil engineers, and the traffic consultant, we're hopeful that we can answer any questions you may have, and we look forward to a very favorable outcome this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioners, have any, Mr. Demink, questions?
Okay, I see you guys did put in the deceleration lane like we discussed. I read the traffic survey from the company you had do it, and there is a lot of traffic there, but according to their data, there was only one crash reported within that area like once a year. So I know we had discussion about that, no left turn out of there. After reading the traffic plan, I guess I can agree to it. I'm not sure what the other board members have, but the main thing I want to see is that deceleration lane, which we spoke about the other day over the phone.
Yes.
And then after reading your traffic study and what's there, I hope they're right, because there's so much traffic between Kroger's and Altman and the gas station. And like I say, you're far enough over, you're 2 lots over from the driveway into that subdivision. And like I say, there is no ingress or egress to that street, which is good, because that was a problem we had before with Culvers. Correct. So I'm good with everything, and I appreciate your conversation that we had the other day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Brokart?
2 quick comments. Ms. Kroll, is that you? You did a really nice job on that traffic study. I liked it a lot. Well done, well done. Mr. Paluzzi, I appreciate the fact that you're giving the residents on the north side of that property 200-plus feet of cushion with all the landscaping and the trees. I don't think lights or noise will impede on their privacy. So I wanted to say thank you for that layout. I have no questions. I like what you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I may add, we spent time knocking on doors and hearing concerns early on, which is our normal protocol when we start any development. And the sensitivity to the neighbors, and obviously the proximity of the building and the order menu board We definitely took into consideration, so we appreciate you recognizing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Renault.
Yeah, just a couple of items. One, thank you for the response you provided, actually. I know we talked a lot in September about what our concerns were, and you addressed all of them, so thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
And as far as, the one question, I don't remember if I asked it in September, but what are your, from a busyness standpoint, like what are your peak hours for traffic?
Yeah, well, obviously, it's the morning hours.
Generally, that's what I
So,
assumed, but.
You know, generally speaking, and Julie, do you have the peaks exactly? Okay. Would it be okay if Julie came and answered that question
Yeah,
for
no,
you?
that'd be excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Julie Kroll, Fleece and Vandenbrink. We did the traffic study for this, and I'm trying to pull up the exact peak hours. Generally, the peak hours for a Starbucks are from the AM peak from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Do you want the actual 1 hour?
No, I was
Okay.
assuming it was the hour, and I'm assuming
Yeah.
typically a Monday through Friday.
So what we have found actually with Starbucks lately, if you've been to Starbucks recently, is that we see a big AM peak, and then we're still seeing a midday peak. It's not as high as the AM peak, but people are coming out, they work from home, and they go to Starbucks when they're out and about doing their stuff at lunchtime. And then there's still some people that go, I went to the Starbucks down the street this evening on my way here on 23 Mile, and there was people at the Starbucks. So people are still going to Starbucks, even in the evenings, but less or so, and that was what we saw in our trip generation.
Okay, no, that's what I wanted to confirm, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jaworski?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing everybody was concerned about was the spillover into the street as far as stacking. So I know you got your busiest times between 7 and 9. You got busy other times. I think you've adequately addressed the lanes so that there's enough time in there. I didn't see anywhere in here, and forgive me if I didn't get it, but what about turnover time with the cars in the lane?
Yeah, it's a great question, and Julie's got great data on that.
You can probably tell I do like Starbucks. And we've done a lot of traffic studies for Starbucks over the years. So especially since post-COVID. So Starbucks has redone how they're doing their stores. So back in the day, it would take about 60 seconds, maybe a little more, to process their coffee for their orders in the drive-thru. Now their new stores are much more streamlined and to accommodate those drive-thru and the mobile orders a lot faster. So we're seeing 45 seconds per vehicle. So for example, if I were to sit at the end of the Starbucks watching the drive-thru, every 45 seconds on average, I'd see a vehicle leaving the Starbucks lane. So it's allowing them to get about 80 vehicles per hour through the queue.
And so there's adequate exit space then to make that right-hand turn?
Yeah, so that was the other thing that we did in the traffic study is we evaluated the operations of that site driveway. One of the things that was key for the driveway is there's 2 lanes on the egress approach. So that there's a left lane and a right lane exiting the site, and that allows for that additional stacking lane distance for the vehicles that are exiting. They are somewhat metered because you have them stopped at the window, they get their coffee, and then they leave about every 45 seconds, and we're not seeing delays exiting onto 23 Mile that exceed that. So
Okay.
we're not expecting queues on the drive approach.
All right, and I believe, from what I've read, Starbucks in general is addressing their stacking time.
Yes, that's it. Like I said, it used to be, when I was doing these, 10 years ago, it was like 60 seconds per vehicle, and they have since shortened that since COVID because they've streamlined their process.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Klinowski?
Yeah, in your site circulation and queuing, you said coffee shops with drive-through typically have. Now, is that all coffee shops, or is that specific to Starbucks? Because the volumes are much higher on Starbucks, so that's That's one of our concerns, because 23, we have one on 23, it's backing out into the road, and we do not want that again.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
we're really, that's why there's such concern about,
That's like why I said, on my way over here this evening, I went over to check out that 23-mile site, the existing one, in person. It is so tight in there. Like, it is a really tight site. Starbucks wouldn't go for a site that tight nowadays because we know that those cars are gonna back up on the road. The total queuing on that entire site can now be accommodated within just the storage length that we're proposing on this site. So the new site that we're proposing has like double the amount of stacking. So we're not seeing any projections that would extend onto the road, nor would I expect much to extend past the queue length that they show on their site.
and that right taper, is that going to be part of the plan?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay, all right. Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Leonard?
Yes, pretty much everything's been asked that was on my mind. I just want to make a comment. I know there's a lot of concern about the traffic on a popular restaurant, and Chick-fil-A was another one we just got done with. And I went there today. Now, it was off hours. I think it was around 3 p.m. There was nobody in the drive-through lane. Even when you get back to the guard that's there and you turn, there was nothing there. And so I think with more facilities, since this is the second one, that'll probably help both businesses from maybe the traffic. And I think that's kind of happening with Chick-fil-A. There's more coming out and just didn't feel it, you know. So, but I talked to them, and they do have the peak hours, and so time will tell. They've just opened recently, so maybe a lot of people don't know they're open yet. But again, having the ability to stack vehicles and keep them off the road is a big plus, and something we'll be looking at in the future at other businesses like this. So that's it. Thank you.
Mr. LaBelle?
Again, thank you very much for your analysis. This is, it was, you know, some of the traffic studies that we get are 90 pages. This was nice just to have something to the point. From what I'm reading here, it appears, based upon your professionalism, that they have adequate stacking in the parking lot, in the drive-through lanes, so I do feel comfortable with that now. But let's get back to the other things that we're deficient on. And if you wouldn't mind answering these questions.
Sure.
Number 2 that I have written down, ingress and egress, I think we've pretty much talked about that. Number 2, the sound of the speaker system and the residential. How can you, or what are you planning on doing to address that?
Yeah, so Reed, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, Reed Cooksey with Stonefield Engineering Design. So as was pointed out by Ms. Osborne, we did submit a speaker detail. It will have muffling to it where what we've seen is from the location to where it's shown to the property line, the decibel levels are lower than what the ordinance requires, as well as, again, the use, the peak times in which the speaker would be used more often is not during night times, and that the studies in the past have shown that the traffic noise on 23 miles is actually going to be much louder than our speaker ever would, decibel-wise.
I understand that. So what kind of decibel levels are you proposing at the property lines?
We didn't perform a study on this specific site. This is just based on research that the speaker company provides for projections from their speaker system. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me.
Okay. The next thing I have on my list is, you know, looking through the architectural drawings or the depiction of your building, you still have EFS all over it. Is that EFS on top of the building? Because one set of drawings doesn't depict or doesn't call out Drive It or EFS, but the next set of drawings do call out drivers. So is there Drive It on this building?
Yeah, so I'm hoping that what's in your packets, because if you remember in September, there was confusion as well. But in your packets, you should have what we propose to do. and it does have elements of ephes. There is no ephes on the front elevation per your ordinance, but please understand that the ephes combination that is applied to this building is to bring aesthetic value to the building so that there's multiple components to what would ultimately is placed on the elevations for architectural reasons. And I know Mr. LaBelle, in September, you voiced your concern about ephes in general. And as I think I mentioned to you, we retain ownership of our buildings. So we're not here today and gone tomorrow. So the buildings that we build for us, not just our tenants. And the obviously longevity of the product and keeping them looking as good as they look day one is very important to us. So yes, there is ephes components to the building, but I think that ultimately when it's built, you'll be very, very impressed with how it looks and the portrayal from all elevations. But the point that you brought up in September regarding the front elevation, that has been modified, and I think Ms. Osborne went through the percentages, but I'm more than happy to go through them again in regard to the products that are proposed for the front elevation to meet your ordinance.
I understand that, and I'm not here to, to debate the driver of the ephes subject here. Typically what happens with ephes, it has to be painted, and we don't allow that. We don't allow painting on our buildings. We have to have a durable material. Yeah. And with ephes, after a while, it streaks, it just doesn't look good. And I'm sure you do keep your building up very nicely. So I still have issue with the ephes.
So if I may just comment on the ephes again? So we don't paint our ephes. The product that is actually applied to the foam is a product that is pre-color selected and mixed into the coating. So even 5 years from now, when we go to freshen up, we don't apply paint. We recoat the surface, so it's scratched and recoated.
Okay. There's, the next thing is the screening on the north and west property lines. Do you have any?
So we're going to seek a variance for that. We spoke with our neighbor to the west, and as you know, that property is zoned, I believe, RM2, high-density residential or multifamily residential. And we've had discussions with Mr. Rizzo, who owns the property to the west, and he has no problem with what we're proposing and the variance that we're seeking. So in lieu of, we'd like to install the landscaped buffer as opposed to the wall. And then at the north end, we'll be seeking a variance as well to include landscaping as opposed to a wall. And once again, through our door knocks, that was the desire.
Okay. The next thing was for the land banking, but that could be done, around us. Dumpster materials. It shows split face block.
Yeah, so I'll commit tonight to matching the masonry product that's on the building on the dumpster location.
Okay, so we're gonna need a change in the drawings for that then?
It's no problem.
And then the last thing I had, and I think it has been addressed, is with the traffic study, there was the comment that there needs to be you didn't call it a
Taper?
Yeah, you called it a taper lane rather than a decel lane, but we'd like to see that on the drawing as well.
It should be on your, it should be incorporated in the drawings you have this evening. It's already implemented.
I didn't see it. Okay.
Yep, it's on there.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I have no questions, so I would entertain a motion for Starbucks.
Thank you.
I didn't see the decel lane on here.
Sure, decel lane on there. Yeah, there's one on there.
Is there? You found it? Okay. It's on the second page?
Here it is, Rick.
So we've extended this
that looks like just a taper. I mean, it doesn't look like a deceleration lane. What is, what's stopping you from carrying that on the other?
The adjacent property's entrance.
Mhm.
So
So what they've done in the past is they've moved the entrance back as part of the decel lane in order to accommodate that decel lane.
if MDOT permits us to do that, we can, work with them on it, but.
Yeah, I'd like to see that personally. I would like to see that as well. Mr. Demink, I know that was one of the things that you were talking about. There isn't a decel lane on here.
Wasn't it?
No, that is, all that is just, all that is, that's the entrance that you see there. Yeah, see, there's just, there's a slight taper to the curving, and then this is the entrance, so there's no place for cars to pull in.
The phone was a decel, not a taper, so.
Could I make a quick comment on the decel? So this will have to go to MDOT for review because they're going to be ultimately the permit holder for this driveway, this curb cut. And so MDOT will decide what they're going to allow or not allow for this location. So at this time, they're showing a taper. Our recommendations show a taper per MDOT requirements, but the design of that lane will have to be provided by MDOT.
But MDOT also just, they also consider what our
Desires.
desires and what's required in our township. So I personally would like to see more of a decel lane there.
And certainly when we go to the permitting with MDOT, we can discuss that with them.
Any other questions by the commission? Any motion by
just
the
so I-
commission?
I'm sorry. Mr. Chairman, just so I understand, you're going to go to MDOT, you're going to ask for a decel lane, if they'll permit that? And if they permit it, you'll put it in the plan and make that happen? Or is there a decision to be made after that?
So as it's been stated, and I think everyone's aware, MDOT has jurisdiction over the road. We'll make the request. If MDOT approves it, we'll install it.
Thank you.
I'm prepared to make a motion. Is there any last comments on the EFS? Can you do something other than the EFS on the building? The reason being is we have to be consistent with what we've done in the past with other applicants, and we've always pushed back with EFS.
So this
And
is.
I understand that your EFS is colored and you're the owner and all of that, but it's not being consistent with what we've done in the past and what, our township ordinance.
So
requires.
unfortunately, there's nothing that I can do in regard to the EFS. This is,
Can you choose another material other than EFS? There are other materials out there. I mean, the Nichiha is new to us, and we've been allowing that.
Yeah.
We've been allowing,
I brought a
some kind
sample of
steel
Nichiha.
panels,
Are you
things
familiar
of
with
that
the
nature.
Nichiha? Would you like to see it? I did bring a sample of the Nichiha.
Yeah, actually, we wanted to see the thickness of the
Sure,
Nichiha as
but
well.
unfortunately, I can't do anything about the EFS, because at this point, we're committed with Starbucks, and we've gone through the whole design process. This has been over a 12-month process, even though we've only been before you 60-some days ago. But this has been a very long process, so drawings are already established. Everything we're in a very fast track, and we'd like to get this store open as soon as possible. So provided we get a favorable response this evening in a motion to approve, and obviously it's voted to approve, we're going to seek the ZBA approval ASAP, and we need to have a shovel in the ground ASAP, once again. So I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do with the EFS, but I have the Nichiha sample.
Yeah, what is the thickness of that Nichiha?
Yeah, I'll pass it.
Yeah, there was different, Nichiha offers different thicknesses, and,
That's the good one.
yeah, it's fine. It's better than anything.
EFS. It's better than EFS.
It's better than the other stuff I've seen. It's thinner even more.
What's everybody's, Do we ask the question about the ethos? I mean, I personally have a problem with it, but if everybody else is fine with it, I'm fine with it.
I do. I think it's before. Carl knows building materials more than anybody.
But if we do this, we're in the future.
Mr. Chair, you need to be talking to the public on a public record. Talking amongst yourselves outside of the hearing is not likely a violation of the Open Meetings Act, so don't do that.
Okay.
If somebody else wants to make a motion,
Would you like to make a motion? To approve or table, postpone?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve site plan 2024-13, special land use, C3, 1.513 acres, north side of 23 Mile Road, east of Sherborne Drive, parcel ID 1509-14400-046.
I'll second.
Can I ask you to add one thing, that if MDOT approves
Oh.
a deceleration lane, that has to be put in, not just
Yeah, no, I
a
will,
flare?
and I will
Please,
amend
if-
that
if
motion
you
too,
would,
yes.
please.
If MDOT does approve that deceleration lane, then we want to ensure that that does get put in there as part of the approval.
We have a motion by Mr. Renaud, supported by Mr. Demink. All in
Mr.
favor?
Brokart did that.
Oh, Mr. Brokart?
I just asked for the.
Okay.
I'd suggest do a roll call vote.
All in favor?
Why don't you do a roll call, Paul?
Roll call vote.
Do a roll call vote.
Mr. Brokart?
Yes.
Mr. Klinowski? No. Mr. Jaworski?
Yes.
Mr. Renaud?
Yes.
Mr. Leonard?
Yes.
Mr. Demink?
Yes.
Mr. LaBelle?
No.
Mr. Miller? No. So that's 3 no's, so motion passes. What do we have to do? Sorry.
That's nice stuff.
We have to do the special land use approval.
Thank you.
You want to make a motion to approve the special land use?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the special land use.
We have a motion by Mr. LaBelle, supported by Mr. Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
The next item on our agenda is Woodland Meadows. It's item D. It's 2024-15, the preliminary review site condominium. So this is just a preliminary review of the proposed site condominium. It's zoned R1B. It's 10.5 acres north of 24 Mile Road, east of Sass. The parcel ID is 15-09-100-400-007. Ms. Osborne?
Thank you. So again, in your packets, we have a memo for you for this application. This is a preliminary site plan that we've reviewed, and we generally think it's in compliance with the ordinance standards, as I'll discuss next. So as noted, this proposal is kind of phase 2 of a proposal that was in front of you back in January. The site directly west was approved for phase 1 of Woodland Meadows condominiums earlier this year. So the site is bordered by single-family residential in all directions, including across 24 Mile Road, where there's R1C single-family housing. There is one proposed access drive via Woodcrest, which connects to Woodland Meadows and then to 24 Mile Road within the site. The applicant is proposing to put 28 single-family homes on the site. They will be a mix of 1- and 2-story homes with attached 2-car garages. So the applicant has provided all the required information for a preliminary review for a site condominium, and that's noted at the bottom of page 3, bottom of page 2, moving on to page 3. On page 3, the dimensional standards are noted. The application meets all of the dimensional standards with the exception of 2 items. First, there are 2 lots that don't meet the minimum lot depth of 130 feet. It's noted that these are cul-de-sac lots, and that each of them may wish to discuss if that's acceptable. The other dimensional standard that might be deficient is in the maximum lot coverage. The applicant did provide the typical lot and housing dimensions, and if those were fully built out, it would be 39% coverage, where 30% is allowable. So the lot coverage will need to be confirmed when building permits are issued to ensure that it meets that 30% maximum. At the bottom of page 3, parking is noted. The ordinance requires 2 off-street parking spaces per single-family dwelling unit. These units have a 2-car garage and space in the driveway. Appears to be space in the driveway for additional parking. We do need to know the driveway dimension to confirm that the garage is 30 feet from the edge of the sidewalk. In terms of landscaping, the frontage landscaping requirements have been met. 12 frontage trees were required and 12 have been provided. Street trees have also been provided as required, and the replacement tree requirement has also been met and well exceeded. They're preserving 81% of the trees on the site. The ordinance requires some variation in the appearance of dwelling units, and the applicant has submitted a package that shows 4 elevations for the single-family units in the development that meets that variation. I'm happy to answer questions if you have any.
Thank you. Is the applicant here? Like to come up to the podium?
Yes.
Do you have anything to add?
Jerry Griffith, Clearview Homes. I think Ms. Osborne covered everything. I'm here to take questions, honestly. I will comment on the first phase. Actually, we just paved it about 3 weeks ago now. We're finishing up grading. Gas and electric are going in as we speak. So just an update on what we're going to be attaching to is in the ground right now.
And they're using the same houses?
Same homes being offered? Yes.
Okay.
That's the plan. I mean, obviously this is a little ways out. We could add or take away, but generally speaking, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Mr. DeMake?
I'm good.
Mr. Brokart?
I'm okay too.
Mr. Renault?
Oh, it's all used when everything says compliant.
Mr. Jaworski?
I have no questions.
Mr. Klinowski?
Yeah, I have, the only issue that I was looking at was the cul-de-sac, but because of the circular nature of it, it does cause some practical difficulty. In the past, we have recognized that, so I have no problem with this.
Mr. Leonard?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. LaBelle?
I have nothing other than just a couple of comments, please. This is just a preliminary site plan review. There's going to be a few things that need to be addressed. One being we need that the dimensional size of the driveway in front of the garage, make sure we've got the 30 feet there. And then I would also ask the township pass this on to the fire department, make sure that they're good with ingress and egress for that, going that far back into that cul-de-sac with the fire trucks and without an egress. Sometimes there's been other considerations made for that. So I'd ask them that they would review that as well. That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
In our preliminary meeting, when we met with just township staff, the fire department had 2 representatives there, and we're fine with the road, the 2 cul-de-sacs, yeah.
Out of courtesy to them, we always defer to them, so.
Sure,
Thank
yeah,
you.
no, and the road commission, for what it's worth, is happy not to have another, entrance onto
okay.
24.
All
So,
right. Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Don't they usually issue a letter that goes in the packet that they're okay with it?
This is just a preliminary site plan review.
Oh,
So
thank
on the original, when they come back for the final site plan review, that should be attached. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion to approve item D, Woodland Meadows, second phase, 2024-15, preliminary site plan review for the condominium R1B. The parcel ID is 15-09-100-400-007. As part of my motion, when you do come back for your site plan, with your final site plans, that you include all of the dimensional requirements that were noted this evening, as well as what you've received from Giffords Webster. With that, I'll make a motion to approve.
support. We have a motion by Mr. LaBelle, supported by Mr. Renault. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
The last item reviewed this evening is item E, gasoline service station site plan 2024-18. It's zone Z3 with a PUD. It's 41.31 acres. It's the southwest corner of 21 Mile Road and Town Center Road. The parcel ID is 15-09-31-476-007. Ms. Osborne, if you would please.
Thank you. So in front of you is a site plan. As noted, this site is currently Zone C3 and it's regulated under a PUD agreement that makes the use a permitted use. So this is not a special land use, it's just a permitted use in front of you. The site that's in front of you is 6.1 acres. It's currently vacant and does not have access to either 21 Mile Road or Town Center at this point. The proposal is to build approximately 6,000 square foot gas station, convenience store with an outdoor patio and a cat scale. The site will also include 14 vehicle and 6 truck fuel pumps and with a covered canopy. At the bottom of page 2, we move into the dimensional standards for the district, and you can see that they have all been met, both for the district and for dimensional standards specific to gasoline pumps and canopies. On page 4 are the use standards for gasoline service stations. The proposal also is compliant with all township standards for that use. On page 5, we move into the site standards. The first item is building materials. The applicant's proposing a stone veneer and brick materials for the building with a pre-finished metal roof on the front facade. In terms of the percentages for each, or for the front facade facing town center, 48% is proposed to be brick. If the storefront area were removed, it would be 62% brick. I'd also like to note that with all the building materials included, 21% of the front facades is ledge stone, and without that storefront area, it's 27%. So in total, 89% brick or stone if you don't count the storefront area. So that's something that the Planning Commission may wish to discuss as to whether or not the building materials that have been proposed are acceptable. The requirements for parking is that there are 33 spaces. The applicant has provided 33 spaces of the required dimensions and adequate maneuvering lanes. And surfacing will defer to the township engineer per usual. At the bottom of page 5, we get into the ingress and egress. The site currently doesn't have access to the site. They are proposing 1 ingress and 2 egress lanes at the north and south ends of the site from Town Center Boulevard. Those are clearly marked with pavement markings and are 50 feet wide. The northernmost driveway is 275 feet south of 21 Mile Road. We want to call out that site may be limited if you're making a left from the south egress, and so this is something that the applicant might want, or the Planning Commission may wish to discuss with the applicant, both in terms of the number and the location of the driveways, and then anticipated circulation. The plans also include several bollards. They, for the most part, meet the requirements in terms of height and distance and color and all of that. I'll note in the letter that I said that we didn't have the distance from the bollard to the curb, and I did talk to Jonathan. He said that that distance actually isn't needed for this review. For Planning Commission, engineering will look into that, and that's simply because their sidewalks that are proposed are not raised. Moving on to bicycle parking, they are required to have 2 bicycle parking spaces and have provided those directly outside the front entrance. The bicycle parking can be accessed via a pedestrian crosswalk at the north end of the site, and that connects also to Town Center Boulevard. And the bicycle parking facilities meet the township's requirements. They have provided a loading and unloading area east of the fueling canopy, and there's a secondary loading zone south and west of the building. In terms of pedestrian circulation, there is a sidewalk that comes in off of Town Center Boulevard and one on 21 Mile Road that's proposed. The way to get from both Town Center Boulevard and 21 Mile Road into the building requires a lot of crossing through parking and maneuvering areas, so the Planning Commission might want to discuss with the applicant alternative routes, in particular for the north pedestrian walk, to make a more direct route to the building. The bottom of page 6, I'll note that no screening is required, and they've met the tree preservation requirements. And they've met the general landscaping requirements as well. However, the north parking lot island is proposed to have trees with rocks covering them instead of plants. So that's something the Planning Commission may wish to discuss if that's appropriate or not. The parking lot landscaping requirements have been met, as well as the frontage landscaping requirements and the maintenance of the clear vision triangle. A sidewalk, as I mentioned, is required along 21 Mile Road, and that's been provided. And that sidewalk connects to a 6-foot wide sidewalk that goes along Town Center Boulevard and to sidewalks internally within the site. The applicant did provide a lighting plan and lighting details. Those are also all compliant. The ratio for the average illumination is compliant. And our calculations of the uniformity ratio show that that's compliant as well, but the applicant should provide that on the plans. And then in terms of the trash receptacle, they're proposing a concrete and brick dumpster in the west part of the site. The enclosure is going to be about 6 feet tall, 12-foot wide, 23-foot long, and be a brick and stone veneer with 2 double chain link gates with slats. I think that's it. If there's any questions, please let me know.
Jamie Antonovich with Atwell, representing Maverick. Also have Dave Lemons here to answer any operational or business questions related to Maverick. Not a whole lot to add, a good summary there of what we're dealing with here. Just kind of refresh people's memory. Maverick is a fuel station. They have prepared food. This particular location offers some larger vehicle fueling area. I will note that it's 4 spots. Each of those lanes only accommodates 1 vehicle. However, some vehicles can fuel from both sides, so that's what that benefits. To answer a question at the beginning, we have also been coordinating with the Drainage District. I also noted there's a letter in the review packet that didn't have any comments. And that's part of the reason we have, they requested a little pull-off area to help service their pump station. So that's represented on the plan, some of the coordination we've been doing, going into this meeting. Otherwise, I'm here to address any questions or comments you have.
Thank you. Mr. Demink?
Yeah, I know that's a main concern with the interceptor running right under that property where you're at. First question, have you guys already purchased the property?
It's under contract, but not purchased.
It's under contract, okay. Have you had discussion with the developer regarding the drainage on Town Center Drive?
For the road itself or for the development?
The road itself.
I guess that's not something we've had to evaluate yet. Our principal concern was where our stormwater is going to, get to. But
I don't have a problem at all with your development.
Okay.
With it going there. There are some issues regarding drainage.
Okay.
The retention pumps for the retention ponds down the street, and some issues that the DPW has with, on the site by the developer.
Okay.
I'm not gonna get into long things, but some things are gonna have to be, I think, arranged before, because I got a call from my DPW guy, and some other things that, regarding the retention ponds there, the pumps don't work.
Okay.
There's some things, and that's not your issue, that's the developer. So some of those things are probably gonna have to be addressed before your site plan. I don't have a problem with it. I think
Sure.
it's a great idea. It's a great looking thing. I'm just concerned about, going over the interceptor, but I'm also concerned about some of the other things from the property owner. So just so you know.
Okay.
But otherwise, I'm fine with your development. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Brokart?
I have nothing at this time.
Okay.
Mr. Renault?
Yeah, the only concern I had actually, and I like the development, I like the plan, just what was mentioned earlier by Ms. Osborne is the sidewalk that comes up from there. It just seems to be going an awful long way to get to the
Yeah,
building.
I mean,
I don't know what much you could do potentially with that, but.
Right.
Yeah, just when people are walking and there's traffic, it's just always a concern.
Yeah, I mean, our main thought process was to limit the areas that a person would have to cross if they wanted to walk or bike to the store, and not have them cutting across the parking lot. So, running it up along the back of curb gives them some protection, and then a short crossing to an island, and then crossing a parking area to the front of the store.
Yeah, I couldn't come up with anything better, but
Yeah,
it's just still
you
a
know.
concern I had to throw out there.
Right, and then as far as, direct connection to 21 Mile, there's some wetlands there.
Right.
This isn't meant to be derogatory, but it's a bit of a hole as far as like the elevations. So, can't really run a sidewalk directly from there.
Nope, good job, thank you,
Yep.
appreciate it.
Mr. Jaworski?
See on the plans, you have an RV dump off the back of the building?
Yes.
How's that gonna work with the drainage problem?
Oh, I guess, that would be separate, that'd be sanitary connection.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess we don't anticipate any issues with drainage to that dump. So, yeah, that should be completely separate from the stormwater.
Yeah, and as a representative of the community, I wish there was a way we could fast-track something with MDOT to do a overall review of the whole township, because I do not like that corner. And now we're talking big trucks in there making a left going back towards 94. I know there's nothing as a board that we can do about that, but that's not gonna be good.
Okay. Mr. Klinowski?
Yeah, it looks like a nice project. I just have a question about the batten material. What type of material is that?
Which area are you describing?
That would be the front along Town Center Road. Because that's kind of a broad term. It can be many different materials. Just wondered what type of material that is.
If you could maybe, I guess, describe a little bit of what area of the building we were talking about.
Well, they're saying just percentages. I'm just questioning, I know it's kind of a generic description.
Percentages.
I guess that might need to be clarified from the reviewer, just to, what section they were referring to with that description.
Oh, that would be,
Yeah, I see it in the review letter, I guess,
Yeah.
just to marry it with what we call out on the elevation.
okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Leonard?
I'm all set, thank you.
Mr. LaBelle?
Any charging stations?
There's none currently planned. That would be driven by demand, but that is not initially included in, the typical Maverick site plan.
Yeah, okay. I can't think of a charging station in that area. I just was wondering if you're in, and then, yeah, you would know, there isn't any. What about overnight parking for trucks?
There would be none. So it may not be very easy to read there, but on those spaces we have to the south of the southern canopy, they're short-term parking. They're meant to be, 30 minutes. Someone that could stop briefly, go in and get what they need and leave. So no intention for overnight or even all that long-term parking. And the site doesn't really support it. We're trying to, circulate people in and out of the property.
Mm-hmm. Did we get an answer on, there was a gentleman who spoke in the beginning about the paving going over top of the interceptor? Do we get an answer on that yet?
I guess I briefly touched on it, but I can, kind of reiterate.
If you could, please, just so we can have.
Yeah,
the
so
gentleman can
we have shared the plans, in addition to, I understand the township shares the plans with the Public Works Office or the MIDD. We also have done that. They were generally accepting of what we were proposing, a little bit of overlap, encroachment of pavement. We're not going to be over top of any of the piping. All they requested was that we maintain access to the pump station, and we've added a little pull-off area so they can access it easily.
Is the gentleman still here?
Did you hear that, Mr. Locke? Got the answer?
That's good? Okay. That's it, thank you.
My only question is, on the landscape plan, they have 13 Marshall seedless ash, and I'm not sure that they are allowed to sell ash yet. So
I think you may be right. We might have to swap out those trees.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was something we would do, yes.
Okay, thanks.
I got one more question, Paul.
Okay, Mr. DeBate.
Just looking at this, like, it's hard to see it on the computer. The retention pond that you're putting in, is it open or closed?
So in this case, it'd be part of the regional system.
It'd be part.
The regional system. So we tap into the development's storm system.
Okay.
So to your earlier comments, we would also have interest in that system operating appropriately.
So, okay, so you're not, so the water's just going to go in your retention and then go into the development's storm sewer that runs to those retention ponds
Correct.
along the storm drains along the curbing?
Correct.
Okay.
So yeah, we wouldn't have an on-site system. We would be part of the broader development system and pond.
Okay. Have you been on the site? Do you know where I'm talking about, those two retention ponds that
Yeah.
are farther north on the east side of the roadway?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
I know there's been some changes. We did review some of the plans that have been put forth.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Any motions pending?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, and just one more comment. Does anybody have any questions on, because this is a PUD and the way the PUD was written, and of course, our legal counsel can elaborate if he wishes to. This is a PUD here. Part of that PUD is gas stations are not a special land use for the C3 zoning. So everybody's aware or okay with that, or just so they know. With that, I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, for item E, gasoline service station site 2024-18. It's a C3 and a PUD, 41.31 acres. The property ID is 15-09-31-476-007. With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve their site plan.
We have a motion by Mr. LaBelle, supported by Mr. Klinowski. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Presentations, reports, and discussions. We have 3 of them tonight. Fuel station info memo 2. Ms. Osborne?
Thank you. So we're following up on a request by a petitioner from September, I guess actually August, when the Planning Commission was asked to consider revising the existing zoning standards relating to where gas station, service stations may be located in the township. So the memo is really in 2 parts. The one that I would want you to focus on first is the one from October 1st. And this memo basically summarizes the key concerns and goals of any amendment work we might do, and presents some ordinance language from other nearby communities just as kind of a way to get us going and thinking about whether we might want to change these standards. So in the middle of the first page, I noted some concerns and goals for any new language that might be adopted, and kind of bulleted them in 4 items. So the first objective would be to explore standards for fuel sources other than gasoline and diesel. The second, creating standards that result in selective placement of these uses throughout the township so that they're not permitted in residential or other sensitive areas. The third, considering traffic flows, how to manage them and be efficient on sites that are not corners. And then the fourth, considering the need for larger sites for alternative fueling options. So the memo is really kind of broken up into 2 sections. The first is about gas stations, and the second is more focused on alternative fuel stations. So starting on page 2, we have some examples of what's required in other nearby communities and ones that aren't so nearby, in terms of what's required for the siting of gas stations and whether or not they must be located on the intersection of 2 public roads. Only one community that we looked at, Harrison Township, has that requirement, but we did know that there's several communities who are studying their gas station ordinances and may have put a moratorium on gas station proposals while they figure out what changes might be needed to their own zoning ordinance. So you can see there's quite a few examples there. At the bottom of page 2, I start the discussion about alternative fueling stations and some example ordinances. And basically there's been changes in federal funding that have pushed or encouraged some communities to develop these standards, some of the bigger cities like Ann Arbor and Detroit, so we've included those in there just as examples. Starting at the top of page 5, there are some planning best practices from the American Planning Association, and so those are things that we might think about if we decide to change our ordinance. And then I've listed some questions for discussion, kind of broken into 2 sections, one for fuel stations and another that would be specific to alternative fuel stations. So at this point, I think I'm open to answering questions or just getting feedback from the Planning Commission as to where, if and how they would like to move forward, given that this was a proposal brought forward by was just a proposal that was brought forward and wasn't internally, brought forward as something that needed work. I'll just quickly note that the second memo, emerging practices for EV charging station approval from November 6th, is kind of a follow-up to the alternative fueling. And this is just based on a webinar that I watched that had some good tips that I thought might be relevant to our conversation. But again, I'll stop there and open it up for discussion.
Thank you. Commission will hear from you guys first. Mr. Demink.
I guess I really don't have a problem with it. I mean, you're seeing more and more of this. With regards to the road location, we all know what site we're talking about on 23. There's definitely going to have to be some different things done, especially if you go with, if we're talking the first one on 23 Mile Road, especially with traffic. I won't be up here anymore, so you guys can figure that out, but that's the only concern I have, since I will be out of here as soon as this meeting is done. That's the only hard part I understand with going where it is and where this possible development might go, but they're gonna have to somehow get a traffic light in there. They're almost gonna have to do something like they did down at Redwood at 23, where they put the light in for Redwood so people can get out from Redwood and then from Seton Drive, because I don't think, that's the only problem I see is the left-hand turn from 23 going into that possible establishment, especially when you got a light at Donner and then you got a light at the freeway. So that'll be up to the road commissioner of the state, since it's a state highway, but that's all I have on that, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brokart.
Frankly, I need to do a lot more study in this area. I'm concerned with the existing language, but I don't have better language, so I'm going to need some time.
Thank you. Mr. Renaud.
Actually, just want to thank everyone for their efforts, for getting us this information. To Mr. Brokart's point, have not become an expert yet, though I can say we do need more charging stations in this township.
Mr. Jaworski.
I too agree. This is a different topic, and I'm gonna need to do more research. I'm probably gonna have to rely on others' opinions, including the public's. This is something I don't think is gonna be resolved in 1 or 2 meetings. It's gonna take a while.
Mr. Klinowski.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look at, the future is gonna be, could be EV, could be hydrogen, we don't really know, and we have to be open to these changes. Again, I agree, need to study this a little bit more, and then we can come to some conclusions, but that's it for me.
Mr. Leonard.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody else said, and I think the locations that we pick are going to be something that we really have to look hard at. This particular location, adding a light and different things, I'm not sure. I think where they go is going to be important, along with everything else that's here. It's coming, so we have to address it, but fast isn't good. Thank you.
Mr. LaBelle.
Well, I mean, to kind of get into the meat and potatoes this evening is, one of the considerations is eliminating the need for 2 entrances. One off, having a gas station on a corner. I agree with the way the current ordinance is written, that it's, it goes in a corner and you have an egress and ingress from 2 different streets. The other thing that I think that we really need to consider and we need to push forward with is, we've already discussed it this evening, is charging stations, EV charging stations. As much as we're all pushing back, it's coming. And there are issues with people being able to charge their cars. With that, and that's all I have really to say this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. I have nothing right now. We'll bring it to the residents. Anybody like to speak?
But now it went. Well, I just want to give you a historical perspective on M29, 23 Mile Road. Years ago, M29 was Jefferson. And I'll give you this handout. This is an old map of 23 Mile Road when it was called Telegraph. I'll give it to Mr. Seaver. He can hand it down to you. And on it, it shows the Interurban Railroad, and then John Hooker's place, which my parents bought, Reichling's and Pips and Alters. They were my paper route customers. Around 1969, 70, 23 Mile Road was 2 lanes. It was rebuilt in its entirety out to 5 lanes. From 23 Mile in Donner, the freeway, to Baker Road. And then it stopped there, went back to 2 lanes. Around 1985-86, MDOT jurisdiction over that road widened it from Baker Road into New Baltimore to where the Dairy Queen was, and it was 4 lanes. During that construction process, they uncovered the interurban railroad tracks because they had poured the concrete over it. This is one of the pins from the tracks that I retrieved because they put the tracks up on the funeral home lawn for a few days. So in our request was to have these facilities within 1 mile of the freeway. This parcel is 25+ acres. Similar sites that the planner pointed out on 23 Mile Road are much smaller. These type of operations have to be on bigger parcels. Tonight you approved this gas station. It has 2 entrances on a private road. Town Center was never accepted by the road department because it wasn't built to their standards. And before I gave you information, there's more gas stations in Chesterfield, not on corner lots at 2 intersections, than are. BJ's is not at any corner, but you'll probably say that was part of the PUD. Myers isn't. So I think when you say one thing, and then when you look at what exists in the community, it's just the opposite in what you approved tonight. But maybe that's a technical because it's a private road, but it's not on a public road, and maybe because it's a PUD. Now, we've given you information in the past, several months ago, and now you say we need to study it. Well, my clients and our prospective purchaser would like to move forward with something. And so we would like you at a minimum tonight to schedule it for a public hearing, because I gave you language. The planner had similar language, somewhat different, but in the business world, if you're going to have a facility like this one you approved tonight, they were cognizant of the fact that they had X acreage, 6 acres out of 42. MDOT has control over the roads, not Chesterfield. And on Redwood, I represented the farmers, Mancini's. When they hired me, I said to them, move your entrance to line up with Seton, because there was already a light there. All they had to do is modify the light configuration for easy access. So in the taper lane, our driveway approach, that'll be through the permitting process from MDOT. So we would like you to move forward, to schedule a public hearing, so this can be adopted, recommended to the township board so that they can take some action. And if you had any questions or you'd like to see this up front, I'll show it to you. And sometime when I have more time, I'll tell you how they built the bridge over the Salt River and maintained traffic in both directions without interruption.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak?
Hi, Janice Young. I really wasn't prepared to speak tonight. I was just going to come and see what was happening, but this is something that really does kind of stick with me, and you know that. We have ordinances in place for a reason. The gas station at Town Center Boulevard, you know, it's a huge site, and you did ask if there was going to be any EV charging stations there, and they said no. And I mean, you know, it's a place that we should have, you know, pushed them to do that, because that probably would have been a better site to do that. It sort of would have fit our ordinance. I guess the private road is maybe a different issue in there, but you know, I'm not really in favor of this going on 23 Mile Road at the proposed location, because we already know how bad the traffic is, and I know traffic is not really supposed to be considered an issue there, but it really is an issue. And you know, once, I think there's a Maverick coming at 23 and Sass, if that's still happening, and you know, we got the Sheets it's gonna be going in at Donner, and it's really gonna be difficult there. And you know, and I live right there, so for me, that's right in my backyard, and it's a concern to me. And I really do. I live right off of 23 Mile Road, but I'm on Cotton all the time. I don't take 23 unless I absolutely have to. And I know there's a lot of people that do the same thing. What happens if we all started using 23 Mile Road again? It would just be out of control. So please just really take your time, think about this, and really do what's best for the community. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Anybody else?
This is kind of turning into a public hearing.
James Locke. I understand a man's plight, and it's the type of station it will come eventually sometime. Whether that's the proper site for it or not, I don't know. There is residential condominiums right along that property line. Is that the type of service station or fuel station we want next to residents? I mean, most of the others are all by businesses. They're not by residential neighborhood. So that's one consideration. But yes, I do agree it is common and we will need it, but this might not be the site.
Thank you. So now what does the board think? They want to keep it out for a couple weeks and put it back on our agenda in January and want to set a public hearing and see what the public wants?
Mr. Chair, can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
It sounds like the board might benefit from some additional study and discussion. So it might be worth a study session separate from the meetings to kind of bring everyone up to speed, and then could bring it back for another meeting if that's of interest.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to make one more comment. A lot of people, I don't agree with what a lot of people are saying. It's coming, we need to do something. Is it coming? I do this for a living. I've been in the automotive industry for 40 years. We've got gasoline. That's me. We've got gasoline engines. We've got diesel-powered engines. We have biodiesel. We have gas EV hybrid. We have fully EV, nitrogen power, propane, ethanol, even solar. Toyota, BMW, Hyundai are all developing new engines and new powertrains, and we're excited to put in a bunch of EV charging stations. I'm not convinced that's the power of the future. So when I need to study some more, I need to study some more, and I think we need to as well. Wouldn't it be just great if we put in a bunch of EV power stations and nitrogen's the answer? Now what do we do? That's why I hesitate. Just because it's coming, I don't know what it is yet. I need a little time. So y'all might be right and I could be crazy. I need some time. There's way too many powerhouses out there looking at alternatives to battery power. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, I would suggest that we have a study session sometime and learn more about this subject. Okay? Mr. LaBelle, you okay with that?
I'm good.
Okay. Do we need to make a motion to, no? Okay, thanks. One on the EV charging stations, best practices?
No, I think I covered it in the last discussion. We can come back to that during the study session.
Okay. And the marijuana establishment setback measurement?
Yes, so in your packets, you have a memo from Jonathan, Mr. Palin. This also was brought forward by, or was requested here a couple months ago to review the separation distance measurements for marijuana establishments. And you can see in the memo, he has redlined what our current ordinance requires and put in the new language that's been modified from the state's liquor license, how they measure the separation distance. And so he also put together several maps for us to review. The first several are of, well, actually, let me set the stage. On the maps, there is a blue circle and there's a red line. The blue circle is the current separation distance measurements using the current ordinance language. So that circle has a radius of 1,000 feet, which is the required separation distance. And so the center is the marijuana establishment, and then it expands out from there. So you can see what's currently is in play in terms of separation distances. The red lines on the map are what is proposed. And so the red lines go 1,000 feet following the roadway from the marijuana establishment outward. And that would be the new buffering distance. You'll note as you scroll through those that the very last one I think is noteworthy, where you can see that the blue circle encompasses some residential area that would not be, or that prevents the site from being able to be used as a marijuana establishment, but the red line would not, simply because the red line is just going along the road. So if you don't have a connecting road or roads that connect closely, you might end up with the proposed language allowing a marijuana establishment to be located pretty closely adjacent to a more sensitive use such as a residential neighborhood. So I'll pause there. I'm happy to take questions and open it up for discussion.
Thank you. Mr. Demink.
I'm currently happy with the current ordinance, the way you guys proposed it. I think it works good, and I'm fine with the way it sits.
Thank you. Mr. Brokart.
I think we have someone in the audience today wants to talk. I want to hear what that person has to say. I'm looking for some rationale. Why make a change?
Thank you. Mr. Renault.
Yeah, I would actually throw out there, I actually made a suggestion after it was presented to us that I wanted to see this, and I can tell you the way this currently maps out completely flies in the face of what we were intending to do in the first place. And so not a fan of this new definition as it sits, so I'm waiting to hear more.
Thank you. Mr. Jaworski.
We put a lot of effort into it in the original, and I still stand behind that.
Mr. Klinowski.
Yeah, I would say we leave it as is. That's it.
Mr. Leonard.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody's saying. We spent a lot of time on it, and I think we're where we need to be with this right now.
Mr. LaBelle.
I agree with the others. You know, it really comes to light when you look at the last depiction that's given. You could literally have a house abutting a facility, and we had a lot of discussion about that, and we all agreed at that time that the way that the ordinance is written is the way it needs to be. So that's my feelings. Thank you.
Thank you. I also agree with the rest of the commission that we really do not need to change this because we worked hard at the original one. So right now I say no. Like to speak?
There we go. Again, thank you all for doing all the work that you've done. I understand the apprehension on it. As you look through these slides, and I apologize because I just moved, I could not get my printer online, so I had to make pictures of the these proposals. As you look at the first slide, and you look where the red lines come to the edge of the blue, I mean, there's virtually 30 or 40 feet difference on what is proposed and what is existing. The second slide is the slide that's the horseshoe. And just to clarify on that horseshoe, where the measurement starts is at the top of the horseshoe, not on the ends of the horseshoe. That one goes in two directions. So where that measurement starts, it starts at the top of the horseshoe, or kind of to the left, if you will, and it goes to around the corner to the, up and around, or to the bottom. Where you see the red line not touching that blue line, that's the difference. It's this close. It's not a big, difference. In the case of jars, and again, I know why all these sites were picked. I mean, obviously these are sites where we have, people have applied, made application. Where you look at the jar sites, it would have made it more difficult. The red lines go outside of the blue line. So in that particular case, it's 2-to-1 if we're scoring this on what makes it more difficult or closer. And then lastly, the next slide is the slide which is obviously the site that I was proposing. And if you go coming out of there, if you're going to the east and you go around, the red line comes within the blue, which makes it, a little bit more advantageous to be able to qualify. But yet, if you came out of the same exact site and you turned going back towards I-94, you would have to be further. It's more difficult. So I do, push back on the idea that it makes it extremely easy. It's certainly not. Most of these slides are examples of it being as difficult and sometimes more difficult. Again, not arguing what everybody's feelings are. I understand that completely, and I'm very thankful that you even brought it this far. But I do want to point out that, you know, for every one of these slides where it shows it's being easier, there's also a place where it's more difficult, would have been harder. JARS would have had to go further back. Because again, where they're picking, you know, the language on this, it's stating that you're drawing a line from the building out to the middle of the road. So right off the bat, that little piece where everybody's getting that distance, they don't. And again, the reason why I think that this makes sense is because we're not buffering. People aren't traveling as crows fly. People are not traveling as crows fly, especially in the site that I have proposed on Hall Road. I mean, there's 22 acres of wetlands to the east that a crow would have to fly across, and even then it's still only, you know, it misses 1,000 feet by a breath. Yet going in the other direction, it would be more difficult. The buffer is more stringent the way that it's proposed now. So that's all. I just made that comment.
Thank you.
How about that? I got done in time.
Anybody else?
Hi, so I was asleep at the wheel when the whole cannabis stuff came into the township, but I know the township residents voted it down twice. Then we got duped with the language when it got approved to be unlimited in the township. So I have zero appreciation for that, but 1,000% appreciation for what you guys have done with the ordinance as it stands. I appreciate if it makes it more difficult for them, I'm okay with that. I know one of the cannabis place north of Gratiot, or north of 23, when they first opened, they put a mobile sign out by Gratiot, and that's against the ordinance, and they were told they had to move it. The newest facility that opened up on Gratiot, south of 22, keeps parking their trucks all up and down Gratiot. I've called the police on them, I've called code enforcement on it, and nothing's being done about it. So you can't let companies come in here and disrespect our township. We have ordinances and rules in place for a reason, and they're getting away with it. And I think there is an ordinance that they can't have signs on Gratiot. I don't think they're supposed to be advertising their business out there. I have photos of this truck being parked out there, so nothing against this gentleman, I just think that the ordinances are in place for a reason, and I hope you guys respect them. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, I think we should just leave it as it is. That's my opinion.
Your counsel.
One more comment from me, if that's acceptable. Mr. Abraham, you've been patient with this group. You've been, I think, very respectful, and you've been very persistent. And I think what you're feeling right now is this group is gonna need some rationale, some really compelling information or data to have us change where we are. And if there's something we're missing, we should hear it probably right now. Because my feeling is, if there's information out there that we need to hear, now is the time, non-site specific, Mr. Abraham. If there's good reason to change it, we need to hear it. Because I didn't hear it, and maybe I missed it. So I'm willing to listen, but I think we're gonna have a motion. Maybe we don't even need a motion. But if you have anything else to add, I think we should hear it now.
I don't know the name of the business that was approved, but I really like the place. It's the brewery that we approved, where we were debating whether it was okay for a brewery where people are going to go in and drink and leave drunk, okay, because they're going to go sit in there for X amount of time. In cannabis, they come in and they leave. They're not consuming on site. They walk in the door, they grab what they have, they go home, and they consume. We approved a site where it's a common fence directly out the back door of that site, which I love. I went there and I enjoyed it. It was a great place, and I think it was a smart move to approve it. But it's directly on the same fence line. This is 1,000 feet, and all we're looking at is saying We're not asking for a difference of 1,000 feet. 1,000 feet is the number. I wouldn't be here if I was asking for a different number. I know the feeling about that number, and I agree with you on that number. It's the way that it's measured that I think is wrong. And the Liquor Control Commission in the whole country uses that way to decide where people should be driving and where liquor stores and people that sell alcohol should be allowed to do that business. Their number's 500 feet, and it's done on this calculation. We're asking for 1,000 feet on this calculation. It's not a crazy request. It's a request that is what is the the standard. Every liquor store in our state, or excuse me, even in our state and our city right here, they've all been held to that standard, 500 feet measured by the road. And again, the bars and that people go in and consume. After one beer, you're drunk. I mean, and you're leaving there. When I left this site 2 months ago when we had our last meeting, I pulled out, and I was pulling out right on the 21-mile road. A guy came whipping across from the Sugar Bush and almost sideswiped me because he'd been sitting there drinking all day. So this is a much safer use than that, much safer. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think that what has been discussed this evening is what was discussed during the public hearings when we were deliberating on setting the standards, setting the ordinance. At this time, I don't wish to do anything with our current ordinance.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I just want to add to it, through all the public hearings and everything else we went through, the one thing that was common, I think, from pretty much anyone that had comments about it was they absolutely did not want it. They wanted it as far from residences as possible. And having just that one example showing that literally it's in your backyard, like I said, I think it flies in the face of what at least those that participated in the public hearings actually wanted. And like I said, honestly, I'm pretty sure I'm the one that requested this to start to see it. And like I said, after seeing the examples, I can't see changing it right now, but thank you.
Thank you. Planning Commissioners' comments? Okay. Mr. Jaworski?
I would just like to congratulate Mr. Demink on his retirement from the board. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
Mr. Klonowski?
Yeah, thank you, Brian, for your work and your contribution to the township over the years.
Mr. Leonard?
It's been great having you around, and you've done a great job, and enjoy yourself. And we'll see you back here probably in about a year because you'll be bored. You'll be bored to death. I just wanted to comment too on the one building where for Starbucks that we with the EFS situation. What kind of changed my mind was the process in which they go over it, and it swayed it. If we're going to consider this in the future, they don't paint it. They actually just scratch it and remud it with the color right in there, and that's not something that I've heard before. There's been problems with that product from the first time I ever saw it years and years ago, and it's evolved just like the wood sidings, the composite sidings and stuff like that. So that's why I kind of went along with it. They all stand alone, all these proposals, so I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. LaBelle?
I too, Mr. Demink, thank you so much for everything that you've done for us and you do for us still. We expect to see you every Tuesday, every other Tuesday out here in the audience, speaking your mind. Secondly, well, thanks again. Secondly, I'd like to thank the township for the opportunity to go to the Planners Commission training, seminars, conference in Grand Rapids. We learned a lot. There's a couple of things that I'm going to be bringing up in the future. One is, again, solar sites, solar energy. We've got to, from what I heard there, we now need to do something about ordinance for that, or we could be sucked into what the state regulates. Secondly, one thing that really kind of hit home for me and I talked to the supervisor about this, and Mr. Palin, is affordable housing in our township. It hits home for me because I've got a daughter who's divorced, and she's raising 2 kids. She can't afford a $400,000 home. We have all these new developments coming into our township, and these houses, they're beautiful homes. I'm so happy that people can afford them, but there's some people who just can't. And Sterling Heights currently has something going on where they're developing part of their property to give people an opportunity in the area to own a home. It doesn't have to be a 4,000 square foot with a swimming pool in the backyard. It can be a 1,000 square foot home. Maybe not have a garage, but at least it's a home for somebody to be proud of, rather than living in a condo. Or not that condos, anything wrong with condos, but something with a backyard so your kids have a place to play. The next thing is I'm looking for volunteers for pre-planning.
I won't be able to make it. I'm out of town for the next one, so.
Rich and Mark.
And then lastly, I know I kind of carry on and I apologize, but there was just a comment again about the EFS. The only thing that I want to say is so in 10 years, 15 years from now, are we taking and putting a scratch coat on the brick on the building, or the Nichiha, or the other materials that we've approved? That was the reason that I said no to it. I don't agree with allowing EFS at this point, but anyways, that's my rant, and thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Mr. Domingue. Thank you very much for your 20 years. I think you've been on the planning commission 8 years. So thank you for all your time on our board too. Thank you.
I was going to say about time, but I'm kidding. No. No, thanks for all your guidance and your information, and it's been a joy working with you, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brokart.
Brian, you've been a really good servant to the people here in Chesterfield Township for a long, long time, many years. And you've been a really good friend of mine for many years. I thank you for that. But you've been a great man your whole life. So congratulations to you. We'll see you back here soon, hopefully.
Well, since this was my last one, I appreciate it. Ralph, Jim, Carl, Rick, Paul, Mark, and Rich. It's been a pleasure working with you guys these last 4 years. Like I say, my other term was from 2012 to 2016, so I got 8 years on planning. I learned a lot. We've seen a lot of development come to Chesterfield. I think you guys have done a great, fantastic job. The mix of this group between landscapers, electricians, builders, engineers, everything, farmers, everything. You guys, and it's the perfect mix. So you can see what's coming to this township and where this township's going. I've been here all my life, 66 years, born and raised at 21 and 94, and now live up off of Jefferson. So I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed working with you guys. We've had some hot issues on some subjects. The marijuana one was, the board voted it down to opt out, then it passed at the ballot. You guys worked on it. And that's why I always said, I sort of always defer to you guys. I'll put my 2 cents in, but I like it that you're residents. You guys live here, and you can speak to the public, and the public can speak to you as residents. It's not a political issue, and that's the way I felt, and that's the way I acted up here. So thanks. Appreciate the last 4 years. Gary Gendernalik, how many years have you been in front of me now? For my 20 up here, between the board and Planning Commission and ZBA. Gary, I'll still see you, but I just won't be up here. So you've done well. I left police work August 8th after 47 and a half years and 20 years in politics. That's why I said it's time to retire. I got 2 grandkids, and I've been on speed dial for the last 2 weeks. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for, like I said, I've had a couple of things at the township level where everybody's wished me well, and thank you very much. I appreciate it. And to Jill and Stephanie, it's been a pleasure working with Giffords Webster. Thanks for everything. You guys came in with Pat Maher leaving, but you guys have done a great job. So it's great. Robert, I didn't get to see you at the last meeting because Chris was here. Thanks, 20 years, long time we worked together. You worked with my mom for 8, and you dealt with my old man back in the days when he was water superintendent. So it's been a pleasure. You got a great law firm, and I hope you keep going here at Chesterfield. So with that, I'm done. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.